Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Plotlines. I'm your host, Connor. And if you like what we're doing here, please like, share, and subscribe. Join our Discord if you'd like to engage in discussion with me and others who are interested in the conversations we like having. But today's episode is about homeschooling. I am joined with Peter and Kori Suarez, the Suarezes. They are, well, actually, let's just let them introduce themselves. So thank you guys for coming on. If you'd like to say a little bit about yourselves. I mean, Peter Suarez has been on before, but if you guys would like to reintroduce yourselves a little bit.
Go ahead, Corey.
Okay. So we have 5 children. We both have backgrounds in education. I have a degree in music education, and we've been homeschooling for 20 years, something like that.
Yeah.
Probably, 19 years, something like that. And I teach music and private lessons in voice and piano. But homeschooling has been pretty much a full-time endeavor for a long time.
Yeah. Would you like to?
Yeah, I go to work during the day and have the easy half of that job. So, support. I act as superintendent and principal. So if people get sent to the principal's office during the day, they have to talk to me on the phone. Nobody likes to do that. So, it is a team effort, but certainly most of it has fallen to Kori, who's been at home with the kids for a very, very long time.
Yeah. So were you guys homeschooled?
No,
neither of us was homeschooled. I was a Catholic school kid from kindergarten through 8th grade and then public high school. And Kori was public school all the way through. No homeschooling, never even really heard of it, didn't know anybody that was homeschooled, didn't know any families that homeschooled, nothing when we were growing up.
No.
Yeah. Okay. So where did you guys get the idea to homeschool your kids?
My first introduction to homeschooling was when I was directing a youth choir. And I noticed the children that I had in my youth choir that were homeschooled were mature and knew how to talk to all of the different age groups within the choir. They socialized really well. They were very bright, and they're super polite manners and just well-rounded. And I remember thinking, that's not what I thought it would be with homeschool kids. There's kind of a stigma to homeschooling.
You expect them to be sort of awkward, reserved, unable to socialize. You have a certain stigma attached to it, which turns out to be almost entirely inaccurate.
Yeah. So do you think that has a lot to do with sort of not the stigma, but the quality of a lot of the kids that are homeschooled and their manners and such come from just being with their parents much more a part of the time?
I think so. I think for the most part, if you decide that you're going to homeschool your kids, you have made a very serious commitment to their education, to their upbringing. You're just by nature an extremely involved parent. Extremely involved parents that send their kids to public school or Catholic school or charter schools are going to produce much the same kind of kid. They're going to be polite, well-mannered, smart, articulate, and it has probably more to do with the parents and the family structure that they create at home than it does exactly where they send them to school. One of the things that we've always said is like, you meet a great kid, a great family, and you find out, well, where do they go to school? Are they homeschooled? And it's across the board, homeschooled, public school, Catholic school. And you realize that, they're from a good family. They're from parents that care and are trying hard, not perfect, but are trying really hard to help their kids be good people. And so, yeah, homeschooling doesn't have a corner on that market of producing good kids.
No.
But they maybe have a higher percentage of those kinds of kids within the homeschooling community, just because these are families that are committed to doing the best they can for their kids' education and upbringing.
Yeah. It seems to me that parents that want to be around their kids for such a long time would like their kids enough to make sure that they are well mannered. Like if you don't have to spend as much time with them, if you can send them away somewhere to make them be someone else's problem, it's not as annoying to you as if they're jerks, basically.
Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it takes a lot of patience. I think it's a lot of training. Being together all the time is challenging. But then it just sort of becomes just the way you do it. And I think a lot of parents shy away from that because of the time that they would be spending with their kids. It's an overwhelming thought to a lot of people.
yeah,
And we don't necessarily like our kids more than other people like their kids.
you never
We're just
know.
willing to be with them longer.
You're willing to suffer more.
Right. That's right. Years and years off of purgatory. Connor.
Yes, exactly. Get to offer that up and help
Right.
yourself out, help your soul out in the afterlife.
What was it? Pius XII, that the family is the school of virtue. And one of those is patience. One of those, I think, is long suffering. So it's all of the above. Makes you work hard. Yeah.
Should that be the sort of definition of homeschooling? Long suffering, or is that should be
on not just on the parents' part, I'm sure.
Especially if you have a lot of kids, because then school just goes on and on and on
never
with
ends.
with that age gap. So
Yeah, at least you don't have to pay for extra people to do the work, though.
that's true.
That's
Mhm.
a bonus, I guess. So it sounds like, or from what I understand, you didn't homeschool your kids the whole time, or did you?
Well, there's a little bit of background about the age differences. So, good Catholic family, there was a new child every 2 years for a while. And so our first 4 kids came in fairly rapid succession. And then a gap of some health problems and some miscarriages, and that from the last one to our number 5, who came 6 years after what was the baby. So there is an age gap there. So to address the question of have we always homeschooled, the first 4, with I think a 1 semester exception, the first 4 were homeschooled from kindergarten through high school, and continue to be. We have a sophomore and a sophomore and junior in high school currently, along with 2 college age kids. And then we have a to-be fourth grader.
Yeah.
Yeah, holy cow. So our youngest will be in 4th grade. So that gap has led us to just revisit the idea of homeschooling and have decided to send him to one of the local Catholic schools.
Yeah.
And we could talk about the reasons why and that if you like, but it's always been something that we revisit every year for all the kids. Like, okay, we made it through a year this year. So is everyone good? Is everyone progressing? Would anyone benefit from going to school or extra tutoring or whatever? And you kind of reevaluate things all the time and make sure that you're doing what's right for the kids. And so the youngest being that the other 4 were always together, interacting together while they homeschooled, and this little guy is sort of off, kind of in his own stratosphere within the family. It made sense to us to have him be in school instead of kind of more isolated at home because of the age difference.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, having an age difference makes it difficult, would you say?
I think it
Not
might
impossible.
depend on the personality of the child.
Okay.
In this case, our youngest child's very outgoing socially,
Mm-hmm.
and
He's actually just off camera trying to bother us and get our attention and be a part of things without being seen.
so he's really interested in knowing everyone's name, being able to try everything, like activities. He's just very outgoing and super social. So to have him be home without a peer really in the house, we found was maybe not the best environment for him. So we started to think about maybe he would thrive in school. And so we gave it a shot. And that was kind of a scary thing because we had been homeschooling for so long and we were really comfortable with that. But he's done really, really well in school, and it's been a benefit for him.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Transitioning from the two different types. But when you first started homeschooling, why didn't you want to send your kids to either a public or Catholic high school, or in school at the time?
I think overall we wanted a Catholic education. So some of it was part of it was financial, just the cost. We knew that we could get a good curriculum, Catholic curriculum, for a lot less if we did it ourselves at home. That was a big part of it. But also when you're a new mom and you have a lot of children, just the busyness of the schedule of trying to get out the door is really disruptive to newborns and toddlers and napping children and all of those things. And it just seemed a lot more peaceful keeping everybody home, knowing that we felt confident schooling them and having a strong curriculum. Those were all part of the reason for why we did decide to do that.
Yeah,
So cost effective.
how has sort of your education background helped that also, like being comfortable going into that process?
Yeah, it added a level of comfort, but that's by no means to say that you have to have a college degree at all, let alone a background in education to homeschool. And to back up one step from that, so there's many different kinds of ways to homeschool. Two of the basic camps are a package curriculum or design your own curriculum. And the design your own curriculum are like the rock stars of the homeschool world. If you can like pick and choose and you have the time and energy and intellect to be able to pull resources for each of your kids at a different grade level for each of their subjects, and to pick just the right thing for that kid, thus designing their own specifically tailored curriculum, we have never been like, what do I want to, confident enough or like awake enough or anything to consider doing that. That's amazing. And we know people that have done that successfully, and it's amazing. They are absolute rock stars.
It's an incredible amount of work to do that. But
we're in the package curriculum camp, which there are several choices for Catholic homeschoolers in that package curriculum camp. The one that we chose was Seton Home Study out of Virginia. They're the oldest, I think, Catholic provider of curriculum, and we've been extremely pleased with them. And it's like school in a box, and you just add pencils and crayons, and that's you have school. So that was really great. That was the thing that clicked with us.
And they're great. It's written for parents who don't have an education background. So you get the daily lesson plans. They come put them in a binder, and it tells you day 1 in spelling, day 2 in spelling of, quarter 1. And you just follow the curriculum that way. And it's kind of like a workbook curriculum in the elementary grades. And then as you get into junior high, it becomes a lot more than just workbook curriculum, more reading and writing and things like that. And then high school's a lot heavier with Seton, but
Really intense with
Yeah.
Seton. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much college prep, a lot of writing, very, very, very hard work. Yeah.
How would you say, because I feel like some people who have experienced sort of online online curriculum these days because of COVID, how would you differentiate, and how is it different?
So our youngest did some online, virtual learning.
e-learning.
Yeah, well, we call it virtual learning because the kids, like, they virtually learn nothing during e-learning. And it's not the fault of the school or the teachers
No.
or whatever. It's just that COVID e-learning stuff could not be more different than homeschooling. It's
Yeah.
I mean, it's more different than the classroom, really, than the kid actually being in the classroom. Like, that's more similar to homeschooling than the e-learning situation was. So, yeah.
I think there are probably some online curriculums that are rigorous, that require a tremendous amount of like in front of your computer work, which isn't anything that we're really in favor of doing. We try to like limit the screens as much as possible.
There is a smattering of that in Seton, though.
Yeah.
Just like you can do a math lesson that supports what you're doing in the math book and math workbook. You can do that online.
Yeah.
There's a smattering of it, but very little.
Right.
Yeah.
When you had 4 kids in homeschooling, sort of how did you balance sort of the schedule? What would a day look like?
Yeah.
I would go to work and say good luck.
when the kids were all young in elementary school and close together in grades, we had a pretty strict routine, and we got up early, and there were many years where we got dressed up, sort of not in a uniform, but just put on something other than blue jeans or pajamas, because that can happen. You just get into a habit of, let's just roll out of bed and start school. So we tried to keep it really like a day where we prayed together. We had a school room. Everybody had a spot at the table. We didn't use our dining room because they were all too small. So we bought a special table and chairs that fit them all. And they had their spot where they worked on their schoolwork. And that went on for a number of years. And then as the kids started to become more independent learners and working on things that were a little bit more challenging and needed quiet for, working all together in the same room was becoming more difficult. So then we started kind of to spread out. And as the kids grew older, we still had get up in the morning, have your breakfast, start your day, that kind of thing. But it was a lot more individual than in those early formative elementary years.
Yeah. How did it, how would you say it affected the family dynamic?
I think we have seen only benefits, really, from that, in terms of closeness, friendships between the kids, not just like sibling relationships, although there is, of course, fights and bickering and get out of my room and all that stuff. But the kids do have a lot of fun together and are able, the oldest with the younger, kids, and that's, crossing the age groups and that. Yeah, they get along really well. I think they get along with us well. And yeah, it's been a positive to the family dynamic, to the family relationships and everything. So
I think it's really strengthened the family over the years, definitely strengthened the family, where they look forward to seeing each other, especially as they're older now, with people coming home from college or coming home from work, from their jobs, excited to see each other and catch up on their day. That
they like us so much that they won't leave the room right now.
They follow you around all the time and try to listen to everything you say. So yeah, no, I think it's been a really good benefit. Even though at times it feels like a lot of time to be together. They know each other's cues when it's time to go, leave each other alone and get some quiet time.
Yeah. So I think, what?
I was just gonna say, Connor, they do each have, it's not like we're together all the time. So they each do have one or two activities or things that are their thing that they go do. And that sort of addresses the idea of socializing, but also just personal interests that each kid has that they can pursue. And so there is definitely for each kid one or two things, some that would they begin for a while, stay for a couple of years, and then go away, and something would take its place. But definitely they have their own thing or things that are just for them that they do off either on their own or with another group or whatever. So
Yeah. So is that sort of, I was going to just say that like people's biggest probably, hesitate or maybe not, maybe sort of critique of homeschooling would be how socialization would work. So is that sort of the main place where outside the family socialization takes place?
yeah, well, we always said there's 7 people that live in this house, so that you can't help but socialize when you're here. There's somebody's around, you're interacting with people, you're sharing, you're having a discussion about who gets the last piece of pizza or whatever. So there's socializing that goes on at home for sure, just because there's a lot of people here. And we actually have a small family relative to our homeschooling/church network. We're like one of the smaller families with 5 kids. But yeah, so a lot of socializing does take place outside of the home with their different activities and stuff.
Yeah, and each one of them, I think has looks forward to their time out of the house, to their friendships that they don't, they wouldn't have otherwise without those activities that they're in. So it's definitely been important. I think you have to work harder at that, because that's extra work on the parent. You have to work that into your family schedule, and you have to make sure that they get there. And again, sometimes when you have lots of children, it can be logistically difficult, dropping off, picking up, not for maybe forgetting to pick somebody up. We've done that. And then you have to go, oh, I didn't pick them up.
There's always been a 2-thing limit, right? So if you are in dance and choir, that's it. You can't be in like 9 things, because we just don't have the manpower to get everybody to that many different things. So it's been everything from music lessons, orchestra, choirs, to dance, other athletics like rugby and baseball and all those kind of things that everybody does outside of the house. They just take on a little more significance because it is the time during the week where the child gets to go out and do their own thing. So it's not like you're in school all day with a bunch of kids and then you're in practice or rehearsal with a bunch of kids, and then for 10 minutes before bed you see mom and dad. It's like this real treat, like I get to go do this thing with my baseball friends or my dance friends or whatever it is. So yeah, and that's been very useful to all of them too, to develop friendships. And
Right. And I think too, just the amount of time at home, then you really get to know you know your kids so well that it's easier to help them find the activities that suit them best, their personality or their gifts or talents. And so then that way it's easier to guide them instead of just signing up for everything. And so I think we know each other so well, we know the kids so well that we're able to kind of say, well, let's try this. I think you might like it. And, sometimes it's a good thing. Other things we've had to just reroute. It hadn't worked out, but yeah.
Yeah. So bringing in a little bit back to what you specifically used for homeschooling. So it's Seton study. What is it called specifically? Seton
Home Study.
Seton Home Study. If you compared it to sort of Catholic schools, how Catholic is it?
I think it does. They do a really good job. It's the Catholic faith is taught throughout every subject. So they write most of their own books. So your English, you're working on nouns and pronouns, and it will be the life of a saint. So you're learning the history of the life of the saint, and you're putting that into practice while you learn how to use pronouns or nouns or, things like that. Same with history. It's a lot of church history. The religion book is very good and repetitive, and also we use Baltimore Catechism with that. But even the math, you might be counting up crosses.
Yeah, in
and
the elementary grades.
rosaries and things like that.
Yeah, you don't count apples and kitty cats. You count, miters and crucifixes and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, so they try really hard to make sure that your faith is kind of woven throughout all of the different books within the curriculum. And comparing.
It has become one of the only criticisms that we've had of Seton is in the literature program in high school and history in high school. It's so focused on church history and so focused on stories of the saints and biographies of saints and stuff, that you miss some of the larger Western canon of literature that would be useful to have. So when there's an opportunity to pick a book for a book review, you try to steer them towards, Huckleberry Finn, or I don't know, that's the first example that came to mind, but just something that they wouldn't otherwise get recommended by Seton, because they're they emphasize so much the faith, which 99.9% of that is wonderful. It's just like there's more breadth and depth of literature and history that is omitted in favor of that. And I'm sure they have to pick and choose. There's not enough time and room for everything, and that's the direction they've gone.
But they are working on that. Their history program, they're kind of revamping in high school. So I think they're trying to, because of some of that being talked about, I think they're working on just
incorporating more.
Yeah, expanding it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
if you compare it to like Catholic education, you will see today, like the book might say Common Core, and it's a Catholic school. So as a parent, your eyebrow goes up a little, because that word is kind of something that might make you think of liberal education, liberal in the respect in a negative way.
In a bad sense.
Yeah. So that I would say sometimes maybe isn't always the fault of the Catholic school. Maybe they haven't just had the opportunity to have a textbook that they could afford or worked for their curriculum, because books are expensive. So I don't always know the reason why they pick those books, but you will find that today in the Catholic school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about like sort of the comparatively, not just the literature, but the teaching of the faith in of itself, and like religion classes, I feel like I went to Catholic school, and I basically learned the Old Testament, but I never really learned the New, which is kind of funny.
Okay. So do you mean in the homeschool curriculum, the religious curriculum there?
Well, you've experienced both, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, how did those compare your experiences?
For us at home, the homeschool curriculum we use is a lot richer and covers a lot more, and is also just does a better job of using repetition so that you really remember the important parts of your faith from a catechetical point of, perspective, where I feel like the religion books in the Catholic school maybe are skimming the surface, maybe.
Yeah, we know he's a retired public school teacher who is teaching at a local Catholic school now, and is he's a great guy. He's very committed to his faith. And he asked me, not that he needed my opinion, but just like, hey, look at the religion book that I have for 5th grade, I think it was. And it was a situation which I think is fairly common with Catholic school religion text, that there's nothing heretical. There's nothing, it's not so much what's in it as what's left out. It's just very shallow and not the kind of depth that you would hope to have. And that was the main disappointment with it, that, trust that the kids can learn as much about their faith as you expect them to learn about science or math or, English, because they can. They can understand hard concepts, and you just need to present them to them in an age appropriate way. Seton and other curriculum providers that do homeschool stuff don't skip and really challenge the kids with very hard concepts. This, you might recognize this, Connor. Understanding the Scriptures.
Who's that by?
Scott Hahn.
Okay, I have not seen that book actually.
Actually used this in a college course years ago, and it's the primary high school textbook for how many grades? Is it just like sophomore and junior year?
Sophomore, junior year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's uncompromising in its content. It's challenging. It asks a lot of the student and expects a lot. So yeah, I mean, it's
Well, and I think too, just in the environment that we live in today, just making sure that your children know their faith and can defend their faith through some apologetics of, why do we believe it? And here's why we believe it, and show proof of that. It's, I think it's really important. And I'm a convert, so I never learned any of this until I was an adult. So it's like really important for me, for the kids to grow up with it and know it and be a strong defender of their faith, especially in today's world.
And I'm a cradle Catholic, so I never learned any of this until
Exactly. Me too.
Right. Right.
I learned I learned very little, I would say, going to Catholic school. How early would Seton get sort of into serious sort of theology or serious I guess morals in their teaching program?
Well, early on, because there's the readers.
Yeah.
The elementary readers, like when they're just beginning to read, and then in the middle grades, 4th, 5th, and 6th, there's that whole, I don't remember what they're called now. It's like, this is our community. This is our.
Yeah,
country,
they're like, they start off like Dick and Jane books, that kind of I see mom, that kind of thing. And then it just builds with phonics and sight words. But they're Catholic stories and Catholic families that they follow the stories for. And they're teaching important moral lessons from the very beginning. And that's great because the reading curriculum is then tied to the religion curriculum, and not, necessarily the same characters that you're seeing in the religion book, but the same ideas. So it starts
Really,
off very early.
When they can, well, I mean, it starts before they can read, really, with the stuff you're reading to them is kindergarten and 1st grade, and it goes right through. And like I said, it permeates the entire curriculum. So from history, hear the train, Connor, sorry.
It's okay. not a big deal. It's not that loud.
Okay.
So yeah, it permeates the whole curriculum from day one. And then when you start getting into the sacraments and morals and apologetics in high school, and that's, that's not less of a broad survey of church topics and more focused on, this semester it's moral theology, next semester it's the sacraments, stuff like that. So it's, it gets more intense as they get older, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Does it really get, does it get more intense though for like leading up to confirmation?
Well, it does have it. We have a separate book for that. It's a confirmation prep book that Seton writes. So yeah, I would say there's that on top of their religion curriculum. So they're expected to do both of those and complete both of those that year during the 8th grade year.
Yeah, I just remember 8th grade was sort of the only year that I can remember doing anything relatively seriously. Like we took on the harder topics. We basically learned morals for the first time.
For the
Right.
first time, right,
Yeah,
right.
exactly. You know,
Mhm.
obviously you get morals sort of implicitly with don't do this, don't do that sort of thing, but you never understand why. You never go into like any biblical reason for it. I think the only thing you did previously was like you learned what happened and then you took quizzes on, you know, oh, what did David do? David did blank, you know, sort of that kind of thing. That sort of
Right.
basic thing is like, you know, it would have been nice to learn something, you know, that didn't have to do with that. But
It's the use of the Baltimore Catechism is also pretty important. And it gets a bad rap because it's memorization, right? I mean, it's the Baltimore Catechism is question and answer. You memorize the answer,
Mhm.
and it is absolutely so useful for grown-ups that that get to learn it anew every year or so
Mhm.
as they do it with the kids as they follow them through the curriculum, and the kids themselves. I mean, you can't study something in depth until you know it, till you just it's just there, you just know it. And the Baltimore Catechism, it's completely old school and dated and wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful.
Dated's perfect. Is the Roman Catechism ever used?
I don't think
Mhm.
so.
Okay.
No,
No. I mean, the
Gotcha.
kids might have gotten it out for something.
we have it in the house, but it's not part
Right.
of Seton's curriculum.
Well, I mean the Trent one.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's just very interesting is, you know, I don't think there's a strong Catholic faith being taught in Catholic schools. What have your experience been sending one of your kids to Catholic schools in that area?
Yeah, I mean,
I think we're fortunate because they do put a strong emphasis on attending mass and praying the rosary and having a working knowledge of the 10 Commandments in the lower grades, and sacramental preparation is highly regarded, I think, at the school. And I mean, there are other choices in our area, other Catholic schools, and we chose this one specifically because we felt like it does a better job at being strong with the faith.
and part of that, they have really great staff
Yes.
there. We're a pretty small community, as you know, Connor. So you kind of everybody, and kind of people who go to mass and who don't, and that sort of thing. It just you can't help it. So they're really blessed to have a really good faculty over there right now, including they got a new 3rd grade teacher coming in for next year.
Oh, stellar,
Amazing, an amazing
decision
addition,
making.
an amazing addition to the staff.
I don't
They
know.
mi-
I have some big shoes to fill, so I hope I
They have
can do it.
had some wonderful 3rd grade teachers the past 25 years, because one lady was there for 22 years,
Or something like that.
something like
Yeah,
that.
a long
And
time.
then the woman who took her place that we know very well is a great
Great teacher,
person, great teacher.
wonderful Catholic, a wonderful person.
So now, I don't know.
Well, we'll see, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll have to update me in the future.
Okay.
How good
So
of
I
a
guess
teacher.
it's a wonderful way to say that, at least speaking for ourselves as a homeschool family, we're by no means opposed to Catholic education done in the schools. It's
Mhm.
harder to do well in schools. It seems that a lot of schools have lost their way a little bit and become sort of like public schools that go to mass once a week.
Yeah,
And
but public schools have lost their way too. So
but
what do they
I
do?
mean, yeah,
How would you describe public schools if of the public schools that have
broken,
lost their way?
absolutely broken. I mean, it's and I again, I want to emphasize, we know families that have sent their kids to public schools all the way through high school, and their kids still go to church, and they're wonderful families and they're wonderful kids. That it doesn't exclude you from being able to raise a good Christian child. It's just, I can't imagine fighting those battles that you have to fight in the public school day after day, week after week, with all of the nonsense that goes on, even so much more than there was 5 or 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And certainly tons more problems and silliness going on than when we were in public high school.
It's hard for a teacher who takes their faith seriously to want to continue to work in a public school, because there are so many moral challenges to things that are being asked of the teachers to talk about in a classroom setting. And so it just makes it hard to go to work. And then you'll have teachers who will be completely comfortable with that. And then it makes it difficult to teach alongside of them. Not because they're not a good teacher or because they don't care about the kids. It's just because their philosophy is different and they don't understand your position. And it's very awkward.
And I think we saw, and Connor, you're probably more on top of this than we are, because we're sort of living our own pre-designed cave here, isolated from a lot of things. But it seems like towards the end of the COVID pandemic, because of school being online and parents seeing what was going on in classrooms, there's been some pushback. The most famous out in Virginia, that case out there, but kind of all over. There was just, I saw today on the news somewhere, a teacher, pre-K teacher, somebody found these LGBTQ flashcards that she apparently was using in her classroom for pre-K. She's been, the outcry has been such that she's forced to resign.
Woohoo!
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, there's this movement, like with some corporations, and that the idea of go woke, go broke, like enough people are getting tired of it that if you try to, be an insurance company that's not just insuring my automobile, but also wants to hand out material to kindergarten kids, I'm going to drop you. I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm going to cancel my subscription. I'm going to shop somewhere else, etc. If you are being such an activist as a corporation that it becomes untenable for us to do business with you. So there is that at the corporate level. I think that's been happening at the school level as well.
Which I do think that you see parents pulling their kids out of public school and putting them into private school, Christian schools, Catholic schools, and also
Charter schools,
or being radical, as most people think it is, and homeschool, because they just can't take it anymore with the public school. And they see the harm being done and are worried for the future of their kids.
And there's a bit of a new phenomena in that area, that like non-religious people are pulling their kids out, not in huge numbers, but they're doing it because like they're decent people in a natural moral sense.
Yeah.
And they don't want these things presented, especially to their very young children. So they pull them out. They find a Catholic school or other religious affiliated school to go to, or homeschool. And, it used to be sort of just the area of the like crazy religious adherents that did that kind of stuff. And now it's just like regular secular folk that are just decent people are getting fed up. So that's been kind of, again, it's not a huge number, but it's happening, and it never used to happen because public school was never as messed up as it is now.
Mhm.
But hopefully that pushback, our country, any society is benefits from a good public education system. And if our public education system can get back to, teaching
Values,
reading, writing,
morals.
and arithmetic and the Judeo-Christian principles that made our country what it was and still is and still can find again.
I'd say
Hopefully
Freemasonic, but
that, so
some
we'll
might
see.
say Judeo-Christian. I'd say Freemasonic.
Gotcha. Point
No.
taken.
I used to be convinced, but I'm not as convinced that our founding is as sort of entrenched in those Judeo-Christian
Yeah.
values as I once was.
Right.
I think it's a little more murky. I think society as a whole, I guess you could say, is in, sort of has greater depth in sort of came from Judeo-Christian values, just muddied by Freemasonic
Yep.
influences.
That's a good point.
But that it's very much a sort of not enough people sort of think that way, and not enough people would probably sort of care that much about it. Like, even if you say that, as I did, it doesn't really affect you, or it doesn't really change the subject that much, or it doesn't change sort of how you would approach it anyways, because if you're looking to maintain the Judeo-Christian morals, you're obviously not going to be, sort of helping the Freemasonic side anyways. So,
But even with difference of opinion aside, we can agree that there's something in the past that it would be beneficial to go back to.
yes. I
Yeah,
just want to
in
go
public-
back, like,
in public education.
I just want to go back 20 years earlier or 30 years earlier
Right.
than that.
Right. Fair enough.
But it's pretty it doesn't really matter that much. But yeah, the whole premise is that the Christian ethic, the Christian lifestyle, the Christian morality is where this country would benefit most if it went back to.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but first, just removing sexual perversion from mainstream education would at least be a place to start, right?
How
I
it
mean, it
got
would-
there.
But I digress.
Frightening.
Sex education is really the origin of such things, as well as probably I remember seeing when I was, I'm not really a great, I'm not an amazing example, but I did go to Catholic grade school, then public high school. So, yes, it's, I don't know if I qualify as a good, example that came out of that. But, yes, there are some that come out of that. Okay. But, when I was in high school, I sort of noticed it, but didn't really care that much. Like, the big thing when I was in high school and grade school was like recycling, kind of like just take care of the environment type of thing. And I thought, this is silly. This whole concept is just, why is this taking over the school? Like, why is this a month, or why is this a week? Like, and then you learn later that, in high school, I think one of the teachers said, both the recycling and the garbage end up in the same place. And they're like, well, what was the point of any of it? Except for, to make people think the way you wanted them to think.
Yeah.
And then in high school also, I noticed some stupid, LGBT, like, well, it was probably LG at that time, groups that sort of, they went by weird names, like probably like Open Society or something or other, but they had these groups sponsored by teachers, and so it's like they were already sort of working on the sort of the structure structuring. I think there was a minorities council to like the of students to the principal, I think, back in the day. I didn't really think any of it because I didn't really care. I was just like, I didn't want to be a part of either council, the regular council or the minority council. So who cares? They don't have any power. So what does it matter? Like, students don't have any power anyways. So why would I want to be? Why would I not want to be on? Not want to have power and be on a council that doesn't have power? But sort of
Because-
these structures sort of set the tone for the future,
Right.
Yeah.
even if they're not like, even if they don't literally do anything.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that's where we got to.
Right. Which remains an ever increasing challenge for parents who decide to send their kids to public school.
Yeah.
I mean, we have our 2 college kids are at public universities, and like that was scary. And we had gone through this really intentional education experience all the way up through 12th grade, and we're like, they're going to be
Right.
as prepared to handle, and we're very open about those things when they get into high school. Current event stuff, the nonsense that we're talking about that you experienced, we always try to have open and honest discussions with the older kids about those things, knowing that if not in college, then in the real world, they're going to be confronted with that in the workplace or other, in other ways in real life. But it was still scary to
It
send
is
them off.
scary. And really homeschooling all along, for me personally, always felt like a gigantic experiment,
Yeah.
which is scary because you're
Mhm.
like not sure if this is going to work out. And these are your kids, and you're every year just hoping it'll be fruitful, which that's how we judged everything.
Life
But-
is an experiment.
Right. And then you think, okay, well, we just did all of this work to hopefully give them a good foundation for their faith and morals. And now here you go off to a public university. So
The
It
belly
was-
of the beast.
yeah, it was frightening.
Yeah.
I'm still worried for both of them anyways.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, they were both, thankfully, one of the main criteria in picking a school was that they had a strong Newman Center on campus. And they've both benefited greatly from having those Newman Centers on campus. There's you could do a lot worse than the places that they chose, and the Newman Centers and the things that the Newman Center has provided to them.
Yeah.
Again, not always perfect, Connor. I see you smiling. I see
No,
that smirk.
I'm agreeing completely.
And I think too that like they didn't have to necessarily choose to live at the Newman Center or spend time at the Newman Center. But thankfully they did. And then they find some others who think like them and have backgrounds like them. So then that just made it more comfortable and kind of a tug to go more often. And we're very grateful for that. But there was no guarantee that they were going to really necessarily spend a lot of time there.
Well, other than that, they couldn't come home for Christmas if they didn't. It was that.
That's tough.
But the 21-year-old senior to be is within earshot here, and she just got back from adoration at the local our parish tonight. So things are going fine, and we're blessed to have good kids.
Good. Now I think we might have to do a part 2 because I think we might be running out of time, and I have a lot more that I think I want to talk to you guys about. So if you guys would be game for that in the future.
Sure.
Awesome. So I think we should wrap up for now. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you, Suarez's, for coming on. Anything you guys like to say before we go?
Just thank you for talking about it's an important topic. Thanks for talking about it. It's been fun.
No problem. Always great to have either of you. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening. Bye.
Bye, Connor.
Word from our affiliate. Bishop Sheen rosaries. You've probably worn through the chain of your cheap plastic rosary. Other rosaries simply can't stand up to the wear and tear of everyday life. Bishop Sheen rosaries are made of solid metal beads and paracord to withstand any condition and are backed with a lifetime warranty. Upgrade your rosary to a Bishop Sheen rosary made to fit your lifestyle or buy one for a friend. Each rosary sold supplies 2 weeks of food for a school kid in Uganda. You use the exclusive link down below to help support our efforts here at Plotlines. The link will take you to sheenrosaries.com. Be sure to use the code Plotlines10.